This is the Wise Guy Radio Show, a podcast dedicated to the education and advancement of today's artists in the world of glass. My goal is to share an understanding of simple business principles and relationship development that you, the artist, can implement now. Starting with good habits and a solid foundation, you can grow not only as an artist, but also an artistic entrepreneur. Welcome to the Wise Guy Radio Show.
You're listening to the Wise Guy Radio Show.
By Mountain Glass Arts. For the month of November 2016, Mountain Glass is offering their Boro sale, 40% off Chinese rod and tube. Just put in the code Chinese, CHINESE at checkout. And for all you soft glass nerds, they have their Creations is Messy, 40% off. Just put in the code MESSY, MESSY at checkout. And don't forget, Mountain Glass will be closed November 23rd through November 27th. So get all your orders in before Wednesday. Any other comments, questions, or concerns? Just go to mountainglass.com. That's mountainglass.com. This episode is also brought to us by Glass Roots. Now entering its 8th year, Glass Roots is designed for artists and distributors who wish to do wholesale business with shops and galleries. Located at the Monona Terrace Convention Center in Madison, Wisconsin, Glass Roots showcases the works of over 40 vendors consisting of raw material suppliers, functional and non-functional art, and charitable glass organizations. To stay up to date with Glass Roots, just go to glassrootsartshow.com. That's glassrootsartshow.com. Hey, what's happening? Welcome to the Wise Guy Radio Show, episode number 137. This is J. Michael, your host. Thank you so much for tuning in today. With 17 years of experience behind the torch, I am as excited as always to bring you conversations with artists, sharing their stories in hopes to inspire and entertain while helping you grow your business. And today is no exception. Today's guest is featuring J.D.Maplesden. He's an amazing glass artist, been in our industry for a long, long time. And this interview, which I just got off the phone with him, was more of me sitting back and just let him go. And we definitely shared his journey from humble beginnings to where he is now, talking about his first shows and his collaborations with other artists and his travels that have now led and inspired a new documentary that's coming out sometime next year. It's called Vagabong, The American Pipe Dream. I have a link in the show notes for you to check out, and as well as on the Wise Guy Media page. Be Wise Guy Media /137, and on there will be his artist page, as well as a link to all his information, as well as the trailer for this film. And I've already seen it myself, and just it's mind blowing. It's going to be so awesome to see it. Totally different from Degenerate Art, like just its own thing. And that's what makes this chat with JD so much fun. He's a very unique individual that is all about learning from others and then finding his own voice and sharing that with the world through his glass and through film, and also coming on this podcast and other outlets that he has. So I won't ramble on too long. I've got a terrible cold going on. And yeah, so I have like no voice. But enjoy this episode, again with JD, episode 137. We'll talk to you soon. Love you. Take care. Pretty good, man. Finally glad to get you on here, and excited to talk to you, man. I've been following your work for a long-ass time, as long as I've been doing this myself, and it's exciting to see your evolution of all your work. Part of it I want to talk about is your glass, and then part of it also is the new documentary coming out, which I'm super pumped about for you guys. But before we go anywhere else, let's go ahead and get started by you telling us all about your superhero origin story and who introduced you to the flame.
Excellent. Yeah, my name's J.D.Maplesden. I started blowing glass 2001 in Moscow, Idaho, is where I had my first opportunity to learn to blow glass. It had a guy by the name of, his name was John, but he went by Angel. He's, as far as I know, he's no longer blowing glass. He's kind of been lost into the abyss of, sad story.
Yeah.
But he gave me my humble beginnings gave me an 8-hour crash course, taught me how to turn on a torch, showed me how to set everything up. This is how you blow a bubble, how you pull stringers. This is how you make a spoon. Crash course. Then handed me a chunk of tubing the last 2 hours of the crash course and had me pull stringers and lay color on the bubble. And he took that little bubble and shaped it into a little bit bigger than a thimble-sized jar. He used to hold like two bowls in it. Was all I could fit, and that was like the first thing I ever made. And I still have it to this day. It stays in my personal collection.
Killer.
Yeah, but it was fun because as soon as it was done, he looked at me and told me he would sell me his torch. So I ran home, got the money, got everything together, bought the torch, and really had a very small clue on what I was going to do with it. I knew I was going to blow glass. But beyond that, I didn't understand what I had. I didn't understand how magical that torch was and how it was going to transform my whole life. So it was quite an intense experience. When I came home to Spokane, Washington, my best friend at the time, and still to this day, Brandon Welk, taught me how to set the torch up. We went and got regulators, and we got hoses, and we got a box fan, and we put it in the window of the garage.
Nice.
And we turned on the torch, and then it was like, sweet, let's go get some materials. And he showed me how to make a pendant for the first, walked me through blowing a bubble and making an implosion pendant. Mind-blowing.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
A couple weeks later, we had this guy in Spokane, Washington. His name was Dave. He owned a company called Coffin Glass Productions. And Dave was kind of a shady entrepreneur type. But he was kind of funny. I worked for Dave on his private property, and I worked with his nephew who was making these spoons, and they were having me pull stringers for him to wrap them. So I would take a piece of, I'd take a stick of cadmium colors, and I would encase it with clear, and then I would pull it into the stringer. So it was kind of fun. It was really cool. Dave only had one arm.
Huh.
So one arm was a hook. So he would get this glob of glass glowing hot, and he'd reach down with his hook and he'd grab it and pull his arms apart, and he'd have the stringer. So in the beginning, I learned to grab the glass with pliers and pull along. Before I learned you could use glass as a tool.
Right.
So it was kind of a crazy experience. It lasted about 3 weeks. And then I packed up all my stuff from there and I moved in. I talked my mom into going half with me on a kiln. I had $700 saved up. It was all the money I had in the world. I actually missed my child support payment that month to have the money for my kiln, which was quite the huge deal that I knew I was going to do something. So
yeah, I guess that is a big sacrifice.
It was quite the, have to call up the ex and have the talk and explain to her what's going on. It wasn't all that fun, but at the same time, I knew I was on to something. It was what was going to change my life forever, and I knew it. I just had to do it. So I talked my mom into it. She went halves with me on my first kiln. I still use it to this day quite a bit.
Rad.
I got a couple other ones. Yeah, I got a couple other ones that I bounced around with. I still have the first torch I bought. I use it as a loaner torch. And I make deals with glass blowers for it, where if you're kind of down on your luck, you're like, friend of mine, I know what's going on. My buddy Devin's using it right now. and I charge him a marble a month.
Huh.
So every month that he has my torch, I get a marble. So for me, it's a pretty rad deal.
Yeah.
I collect marbles. For him, he's super stoked because he has a piece of equipment that he can't afford at this time. And he's having the ability to save money and make money to purchase his torch. So
man, that's killer, bro.
I really love, so it's just, I will never sell the torch. I want to keep it as that thing that, like, stepping stone for other people that have that dedication and the love for it. I like to help nurture it.
Yeah,
I'm really into, like, helping the community grow. And sometimes it's like, if you have something that someone else needs and you're not using it, you might as well just let them use it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's amazing, brother. That's too cool.
Yeah, so it's a fun one.
Yeah.
In 2006, 2007, somewhere in there, I opened up a shop in Spokane, Washington, with the help of Brando and another buddy of mine, Domer. I had a great idea about. I'd been traveling for a long time, pretty much from the beginning when I got into this. I'm just an old backpacker. I used to hitchhike all up and down the West Coast, and try and go eastward. So when I started blowing glass, I didn't understand, like, sitting and, like, I didn't know how to sell glass. We can start with that.
Mm-hmm.
But what I had learned from example was you grab a gun case and you sit in a parking lot at a festival and people walk up to you and buy the shit. So I was like, all right, I can do this. So I would hitchhike. I would work all month long making spoons, and then I would hitchhike. Usually I get, like, me and another friend, we'd hitchhike out to the gorge in the middle of Washington, and we would sit in the parking lot at Dave Matthews shows, at Fish shows, at, fucking Ozfest. I was at Warped Tour. I went to, like, every show that the Gorge had for almost 2 years religiously. It was like, that was my bread and butter.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Canadians coming down to go party for the weekend. They need a pipe. Kids flying in from the East Coast. They need a pipe. But it was really dangerous and scary back then. Mostly because of security. Because technically we were breaking the law by vending at these festivals because we didn't have permits, but they wouldn't give us a permit to sell because we were making pipes. So it was like this fine-edged sword where you could do it if you had the balls and you were able to, like, be sneaky enough.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you had to still risk. Like, I've had to stand there with my hand on my case and, like, look at the guy and be like, you cannot take this. This is my paycheck. And they're, like, trying to rip it out of my hands. And we stood there in a standoff being like, I'm taking my case. And he's like, no, I'm taking your case. And it ended with me walking away with the case and him realizing that it was a very bad idea to take my case.
Right.
But it took a lot of talking and convincing. But it was scary back then. You never knew what was going on. We just had Operation Pipe Dreams. I watched a whole bunch of my friends go to jail over us trying to be legitimate businesses. So it was like a super scary time, and it was like no one knew what to do. So it was kind of like whatever means necessary.
Yeah, it was a shitty time.
We hid in our garages. But when things started turning around, because I was traveling all over, I was going out east and working with Germ Lyon. Decon are really good friends of mine. I've known Decon since before we blew glass. Him and Brando are, like, my two oldest friends in the glass game. And so from traveling and seeing those guys and just seeing, like, how people were working together and networking, I was convinced that was what we needed to do in Spokane. I was like, we need to get a big studio. We need to, like, have people coming in and teaching classes. We need to, like, step up our game if we want to be able to, like, continue doing this. And we were all doing good, making production work and semi-supporting ourselves off of that. But it was very meager, and we were all kind of like, we wanted to like be able to post a piece on glasspipes.org and see it featured. You know, that was like the highlight of the highlight back then was if you got your piece, you posted on glasspipes.org, you hit that feature, that your whole day was set, man. I remember waking up every morning and seeing if I could get a feature. That was my goal every day.
Yeah, man. Before the days of Instagrams and Facebooks and shit, we had glasspipes.org.
Yeah, and if it wasn't for Glasspipes, and actually I accredit glasspipes.org for glassblowers being able to maneuver through social media as well as we did, and use it as a tool in which we were able to use it for. Because with glasspipes.org, you didn't have a direct connection to an artist. You didn't have a direct connection to a person, or you had a direct connection to an artist. You know, that was his portfolio, and you've seen him post, and you've seen him make comments and do it. So it was before MySpace, before Facebook. It was our space for Glass Pipes.
Yeah, exactly.
It was where we educated each other. It's where we like looked and like admired each other's work. So when it came down to it, it was like, we need this studio, let's do this. So we all pulled together, and I built the shop with the help of all my friends. And I was there for a few years, and we had a bunch of amazing classes. We had Yushing, Salt, Mert, J-Red, Sebastian. I think that was it. And Mickelson. We had all in Mickelson come through for classes. All within like a 2-year period, which was, for all the guys who worked in the studio, it was amazing. Like, we were just knowledge pouring in more than we could actually. We were like overloading ourselves with knowledge at that point. And we couldn't even you get done with one class, and then 2 weeks later or 2 months later, you'd have another class. So it was like, you didn't even really have time to practice what you learned from the last class.
Yeah.
But it was cool because everyone was learning so much and so many different things that everyone was able to pick the style and the techniques that they were interested in the most right then and develop on those. So it was really cool to watch like my style come out of that, and watch Brandon's style come out of it, and watch our buddy McDougal's style come out of it. Domer, his style came out of it. It was really cool. It was a lot of fun. And I look back, and it's definitely like one of the best times of my life.
Yeah, man, I can imagine that's a shit ton of influence to get yourself involved in. You know, and I think that's part of what, you know, doing something like that is what's helped this new generation of glass artists right now that are just, you see these kids that have been doing it for 3 to 5 years, and they're just killing it right now because of people like you that they're exposed. Yeah.
It's mind-blowing how fast people, or the progression is nowadays. Because it was like, I mean, reversals. It took me 4 years to figure out how to get reversals down. And then as soon as I thought I had reversals down, then they turned out with a new way to do prep work to make, so you could get even more reversals.
Exactly. Yeah, right.
Yeah, so
yeah,
it was intense. I ended up leaving Montage after, in 2011, 2010, I left Montage Studios. I had gotten asked by Nate Dizzle to work with Swiss Perk. We've been friends for a long time, and he asked me if I would come and help him at this new company he was starting up. And so I went over there, and I was never worked on a lathe before. I was super excited to have this opportunity to work on a lathe because it was a piece of equipment I didn't know about. I was excited. So Nate gave me my introductory to the lathe, and I spent a solid year doing just prep work for the whole crew. And we had Dosh World was one of the employees, and so was Voorhees. I probably should have mentioned, I've known Dosher since he made his third outside wrapped spoon.
Wow.
I walked into a trailer on the Palouse with Decon, took me over there to meet him, and we walk in, and it's just this little trailer in the middle of nowhere, and Dosh is all excited because he just made this spoon. And by the end of the meeting, I'd worked out a deal with him and another buddy of mine, Abram, to buy and sell everything that they were allowed to sell me, because they worked for somebody else at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But back then it was also funny because whenever I would go over to their studios, they would turn their torches off when I would walk in the door.
That is funny.
So yeah, so that was like one of the things in the beginning that was really funny with a lot of the older guys. You couldn't get into studios.
Mm-hmm.
You had to like figure out, you had to weasel a way into it, and then once you were in there, then you had to like hang out long enough some way in order to wait for them to start working again. And it was hard because I was like friends with good glassblowers, but they wouldn't show me anything. And once I bought my own torch and I was learning to blow glass, it was even worse.
Yeah, because now you're competition.
It was even more like, yeah, they're like, "Wow, we're not showing you shit."
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun. So when I was at Swiss Perk, it was a lot of fun to work with Dosh because he was an old friend of mine. I'd known him for a long time. And I was working with Voorhees, who's just amazing sculptor and really nice guy. And another kid who's he's one of my really good friends still, and he's a guy, he goes by the name of Matt Atienza.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
He worked at Swiss Perk with us, and it was a lot of fun. Like me and Matt, we over the year and a half that we worked together, we bonded really strong. We took the class in Pinland just recently, or last year, with Micah Evans, so that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we were getting Matt back on the show. We recorded for like 3 hours one day, and we both were like,
"Oh, you and Matt?"
Yeah, we both were like super exhausted, and like, I don't know, it was pretty funny. I listened back to it, and I'm like, and he called me up. He's like, "You want to do this again, dude?" I'm like, "I think we need to." It was just so all over the place, the conversation. It was pretty damn funny.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Like he's really, really good guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was super excited to have him a part of the documentary. So we'll get on that one in a little bit. But after Swiss Perk, I worked there for a year and a half. After Swiss Perk, I kind of floated for a little bit, like a 4 to a 5 month period. I was just kind of in limbo, trying to figure out what I was doing. I'd flown out to Philly and was debating on moving there. And the day I was back in Bellingham, Washington, where I was living, and I was looking, and I was like, all right, I think I'm going to move to Bellingham. And that day, I went and had lunch with Scott Deppy, and he asked me to join the mothership. He told me the vision that him and Jake C were doing, and asked if I could help out and be a part of it, because I knew how to work on a lathe. There wasn't a whole bunch of people in town with lathe experience, and I've been friends with him for 15 years at this point, or at that point. So it was like we were hanging out all the time. He asked me to work, so it's kind of a no-brainer. It was like the dopest shop in the country,
right? At
the time, it had like the heaviest hitters, like on one team, in my opinion, in a studio that's been around. There's some heavy hitters in a couple of the studios nowadays. Everdreams and Portal definitely are amazing, but without the influence from Mothership, the original Mothership crew, which was Scott Deppy, Jake C, Quays, T-Funk, Dosa, and Punty, the industry wouldn't, in my opinion, wouldn't be where it is. Scott's been one of the biggest influences, or not biggest influence, he's been a major influence in the industry for a really long time. There's a lot of stuff that he's done that nobody knows that he was the one who started that.
Right. No, I completely agree.
It's like we wouldn't have laser, or it's not that we wouldn't have had it. It's like we don't know when someone would have discovered laser etched Dicro if it wasn't for Scott. Dicro coated tubing, it was Scott's idea. You know, the reason why we're pulling colored tubing out of furnaces is because Scott had that idea and wanted that product. And he talked with Abe at Narstar and they made it happen. So there's so many tools. I mean, that's just 3 things off the top of my head right there. That's just like he's directly responsible for. And so to have the opportunity to work with that guy, it was a dream. Like it was unbelievable. I still like get goosebumps thinking about those days. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, man. I remember when he first came out, dude. It was like we had a shop going before Operation Pipe Dream. This whole thing went down. I had like 7 of us in there working, and the guy who was my business partner, he was really good friends with Abe Fleischman at the time. And he comes flying downstairs. He's like, "Holy shit, you guys got to check this out." And he brings his laptop down, and Abe had sent him some pictures of Scott's newest work then. This is like probably 2004, maybe, something like that. It was like right Scott had just gotten really going, and he was showing us like his color work, like some of the like pyramid weird like chains and shit he was doing at the time, you know? And we were like, I'm ready to tap out now. Like, what the fuck? You know, it's amazing, like someone like that just shows up to a shop, and then you get him under like Marcel and Jason Lee, and then all of a sudden just changes the entire spectrum of our industry. I mean, like you're saying, his influence runs deep in so many areas, not only to mention quality and glass, but and pricing and the way that our industry's gone. You know, like I was hearing people paying $10,000 for pipes. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? And then they showed me a mothership. I'm like, okay, oh, Jesus.
I the very first piece that I ever seen from Scott Deppie in person. We were at a festival. I'd been up all night long, tripping around, having like a great time. And my buddy who lived in Bellingham was like, "Yo, that's Scott Deppie. He's the dopest glass blower out of everybody." And I was like, "Sweet, let's go meet him." And when I walked up, he was like, when we walked up, my buddy, he kind of recognized, so he started talking with us. And my friend asked him if he had anything available. He's like, "I don't have anything available to sell." He's like, "But I brought this piece to show off." He's all, "Check this out." And he pulls it out, and it's massive. It has this like solid color stacked sections around the top, these huge canes on the side, just the gnarliest piece I'd ever seen. And at that very moment, Daniela, his wife, yells his name because he had to do something with his son Kynan, and he just doesn't know me at all, just shoves the piece into my hands and is like, "Hold this," and he runs off, and I'm just like standing there with this. He just told me it was sold for $4,000. This is in 2001. It was right before I learned to blow glass. Like I got my first introductions just right after this. And he shows me this piece, and I was just like, I had a hold of that thing like a fullback. I just both hands over it, like under it, over it. My buddies are all trying to swarm in to get a look at it. I was like, "Get the fuck away from me!"
All right.
I was like, "Don't touch this. I'm not responsible." So, but he came back. We hung out, and still to this day, it's one of my favorite pieces ever, just because of that. And it was just from that moment on, every festival we seen each other, we hung out, and we got to know each other over the years. And then working with him was a lot of fun. And when I started there, Mothership was an artist shop. It was Jake and Scott's shop, and everybody else worked there was more or less like an apprentice of Scott. Actually, they were all Scott's apprentices at that point, and they were helping Scott with projects and doing a whole bunch of really cool shit. They were in the processes of developing the line and all that stuff, and Scott and Jake were just like head deep in trying to figure out new designs constantly. And they had a good pool of people to bounce ideas off of and talk, and we did a lot of research and development. That was probably my favorite part of the job. Is I'd sit there and watch Scott come up with some crazy new design, and then we'd smoke out of it for a week to see what the flaws of the piece were and how we could make it better. And that was probably my favorite thing about working for Mothership was it was always striving to do it better. Like, this is good, and this is good enough, but you can do better.
Yeah.
And ingraining that, like, into my work and into my life would really help me become better. Not only as a glass blower, but even as a person, being like, making sure that if I walk into a situation, when I leave that situation, I try and leave it better than it was when I got there. So, like, I'm really big into, like, when I go to people's studios, I always like to try and, like, leave the shop nicer than when I left. Like, I always make sure I clean my space real nice and tuck up. But if there's like, oh, we need a quick connect for the regulator, like, I'll just go and buy those, and then I donate them to the shop because, you know, the next guy who comes through is going to need that.
Yeah, that's killer, dude. Hell yeah.
So I think that that's like it's a small symbol of appreciation, but at the same time, it really does mean a lot to people. But so that was the striving to do better, like, always just with, you know, cleanliness of the product. Like, we were always like, you know, you're your worst enemy with working with Clear, because Clear's so honest.
Yeah, it shows everything.
It doesn't lie. It shows everything. It shows every tool mark. It shows every, you know, mistake you did. It shows everything. So it was a lot of fun. I learned something almost every day when I worked there. And I was there for about 2 years, or a year and a half, a little bit longer. I worked there. It was greatest time. Had met a lot of really awesome people through working in that studio. Was able to grow connections with people, or relationships with people that I had known before the shop. That really, that was like an area where we came together and grew up a lot. And to be a part of that was really cool, because, like I said, when it started, it was an artist shop. Everyone there was like creating art and doing all this cool stuff. So when I came on with a guy named Davin Titland and a kid named Cody Olson. And Cody and Davin were technically the first two hired, and then I was the third one hired. And it was the three of us were the team, and we had to figure out a lot together. And then we watched the team grow, and it was a lot of fun, a lot of trials and tribulations when you start bringing more people into a small studio. And then it was also really interesting to see what was an artist shop transform slowly into a production glass studio. It was a very intense transition for a lot of the artists. You know, everyone left their ways and settled where they are now. And as an employee and as a worker, I had to separate myself from the artists. You know, I was there to work. I wasn't there to hang out and smoke weed the whole time and relax. Yeah. I had to actually punch a clock and turn around and go to work. And then when I got off work, I could hang out and we could smoke and we could do that. But then you're working, and I kind of want to go like play on my own stuff, because in the beginning, I couldn't make my own work there. I had to rent a bench space across town, so I would work my 40 hours all week long, and then any spare time I had to go across town and blow my own glass.
Oh, interesting.
So that, yeah, because there wasn't bench spaces. All we had was a couple of lathes, and we were running them in shifts. If I wasn't on it, then Scott or Jake were on it.
Right.
Or Davin was on it. So it was, you know, we didn't have a whole bunch of equipment back then. it was still, you know, figuring out what it was going to be, and it was exciting, you know. I didn't understand quite everything that went into what was going on until after I left, and now sitting back a couple years later and looking back, I was really blessed to be in that situation, and learn some business ethics and business tactics from them, and see how they ran their business, and, you know, make choices upon that. So that was a lot of fun. I think I came out pretty well from it.
Yeah, I think that Mothership's kind of they've been one of the ones that have helped set a standard for branding yourself as an artist. You know, I mean, if you have a name, you know, for yourself, you can use your name for a brand in a sense, unless you want to create its own entity in a sense like they have. But it's pretty amazing, bro, that you had that, you know, to be on the ground floor of that foundation for them, and then like you're saying, you can step outside and you know, feel blessed to be a part of that beginning creation. That's now, I mean, they're like the Maserati of our industry.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. 2013 when we went to the AGE show, and Mothership won most innovative product of the year with the Fab. It was one of my most surreal and crazy moments ever in life. Being a part of all of that at that moment, it was really intense, and there was a lot of fun and a lot of excitement. And honestly, it as much excitement and as much craziness as there was with all of it, it still had a lot of hidden dramas. As funny as it sounds, when one person in the industry is doing really good and the other people in the industry aren't doing really good, then you get talks, and it's like, you know, your friends are looking at like what you're making and what it's selling for, and then they automatically assume that you're making a lot of money.
Right, exactly.
So there was that like controversy with, you know, the employees were balling out, the Jake and Scott, they're balling out, but no one was really seeing like the hard work that was going into it, the 20 hours a day work that they were putting in, you know, all the behind the scenes stuff that these guys were doing. No one was seeing that. And they were, in the beginning, they were taking I was watching them take everything they had, and they would make it and they would put it right back into it. And they were really smart about the way they did it, and they branded properly, and they saved when they needed to save, and they didn't make a bunch of unnecessary moves. They were really smart, calculated and precision moves what they did.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. And their glass, I mean, I think the glass really speaks for that because of how it functions and the way it's put together. I mean, it just says it all right there. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was a lot of fun. I ended up moving on from Mothership in 2014. Right, it was honestly like the very beginning, like Christmas time, I left. So I started January 2014 on my own, and it was kind of a scary thing because I didn't know what I was going to do. I knew that I was going to blow glass, but I didn't know what I was going to make. I didn't know what products I was going to make. So I was like trying to figure out how to make something that was different than everything that I had seen, but still taking influences from so many things that I had seen. And it's hard in the industry to make something that's yours.
Yeah.
Because there's so many people who've done stuff before you, and it's like you're always biting someone or you're taking influence from someone, and it's a very fine line in between those, and it's hard for people to figure out which side of the line they're on sometimes. You know, because you're like, you put your colors combo to it, and you did these wigwags, and the other one didn't have wigwags, but yours has wigwags. So you feel it's different, but it's still the same thing. You just decorated it.
Yep.
You took the design, which is a canvas, and you decorated it with your artwork. It's cool, but it's still taking from someone else. And it was, so I wanted to try and create something that I hadn't personally seen before. But it was hard because somebody out there probably had made it already. One of the products I came up with at that time was a Sherlock rig. And the day that I was like, I woke up in the morning, I remember this, I woke up in the morning and I was like, I had this brilliant idea of a Sherlock rig and how awesome it would work. And then I flipped on Facebook, which is the worst thing to do in the morning. And the second or third post I seen was J.D.Maplesden out of Austin had posted his first Sherlock rig. And it was almost exactly what I had envisioned the night before.
Isn't that shit so fucked up though, dude? It's amazing.
That was definitely we've always talked about creative consciousness and the moment you think it, you got to do it, because if you're not on it, then there's somebody else who's going to do it.
Yep. And
so that day I was just I was pissed. I remember I was all butthurt. I called up a friend of mine, Sarah, Kurt B's wife, and started talking with her and just brainstorming with her, and she ended up saying the right thing and telling me that I could just redesign it. You can just redesign that. You can still make a Sherlock rig, just make it your own. Change some things up. There has to be something you can do. And I figured out, I put a little beaker underneath the Sherlock and ran the shower head through it. And it was extremely technical. I'd never seen anything like it before. None of the artists that I was showing it to had ever seen it before, so I was super excited. I was putting a lot of time and energy into my Sherlock rigs. And then there was that moment when I was sitting there smoking with a friend of mine, and I had this idea for a piece, and I was like, oh, it would be awesome. I could do this. I could put a donut right above the beaker, and I could run this perk through here. And it was inspired by a piece that Ease made in about 2004. It was a garnet Sherlock penetrating donut piece.
Oh yeah, I totally remember that, bro. Totally.
The bull sat in front, and the down stem just went straight down and through the donut, and then it kind of curved and connected to the bottom of the can.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I looked at that, I was like, mini tubes are the end thing. Everyone's making tubes. So I was like, okay, well, I could do a tube with this design. I was like, but the problem with using this design is you put it all the way at the bottom, and now it's a force perk, and nobody was into force perks at that time. So I had to figure out how to put a new perk in there. And I was so accustomed to working on the lathe, I knew exactly how I would do that on the lathe. And I was just like, all right, how will I do this by hand? And so then I figured out how to translate some lathe techniques to hand. And I went at it, and the first one, I got almost done with it. I was a couple days in on the project, because as soon as I had the idea, I just hit it. I set the piece down. I went straight in on creating prep work to make my idea, because I wasn't going to let it happen again. I wasn't going to let someone else make my idea again. And I went out there and I just started making stuff. And when I got all the way up, almost done, and I blew up the whole bottom.
Mm.
And I was just so upset, because I was pretty broke by this point, scraping by. And I went home to kind of regroup myself and figure out what I did wrong. And I'm really if something breaks for me, I know that it's something I did. The glass acts one way. It does what it's going to do.
Yep.
If it breaks, it's because you let it get cold. You introduced heat into a long period. You had an underkink. So it's always some underlining your fault. So I like to pick my pieces apart. I like to figure out why they break, why they crack.
Yeah, it's important.
What caused this, and how can I make it not happen again? And so the actually the good thing that happened, because I didn't really care for the way the perk was put in on the first one, but it worked. And then I put some more thought into it, and I redesigned it that night, and I came in the next day and just start to finish made the piece. It was like 16 hours, just full day, started working and got it all finished. And when I went home, I could hardly sleep because I was so excited about the piece I just made.
Hell yeah, I love that shit.
And I hadn't had that feeling since 09, 08. Stop it. Sorry, I had to yell at the dog real quick.
Hey, you're good, man.
It was like this whole new feeling. I was all excited, but I was really excited about the Sherlock rigs I was still making. But this tube was super cool. I was stoked because I knew someone would buy it. I was trying to get wholesale orders, so I was making Sherlock rigs by the masses for wholesale orders. I had all these shops that were ready for them, and they were pretty stoked. And I made the wormhole. And I called up a friend of mine who manages a shop, and I spoke with her, and I asked her, I sent her photos and kind of talked with her and asked her what she felt was a good price for it, which is never a smart thing to do. Never ask a head shop what they feel it's worth.
Yeah.
They're always going to tell you lower than you want to hear. But she was a really honest and good friend with me, and she told me, she's like, I'd give you $750 for it right now. And I was stoked. I was like, wow, that's a month of rent. Like, I can pay rent for a month off this one piece. I've never made something that I could pay rent for in one piece.
Yeah, it's amazing.
You know, at that point, I had never made and sold anything over like $1,000. You know, that was like in my mind still, and this is 2014. In my mind, that $2,000 or that $1,000 price range, that was big boys. That was like guys that were like really doing stuff. I was trying to make like a, $400 rig that I could wholesale so that like it could get maybe up to 800, 900, hopefully. If people liked it, it would go up in value. So it was like a huge ordeal. So when she told me I could get $750, I was pumped. I was stoked. And she was like, I do that for you right now. And this is like 10 o'clock at night. She's like, but honestly, I think that you should probably try and sell it yourself and see what you can get for it. She's like, you might be able to sell it retail right now. She's like, and if you could do that, she's like, then that would be the best way. And I was like, how would I do that? And I've been seeing everybody post photos online and selling stuff on Facebook. And when I was working at the ship, Dosa was really into that, and Quabe was into it. But I was an employee, so I kind of let this whole collector market just go. I didn't pay attention to who was collecting what. I didn't know who was who. But I had this like store like relationship. I wanted to deal with stores, and that it quickly changed after this transaction, because the next day I had my friend Frank come over, take a photo, the Volcano Kid on Instagram. He took a photo of the piece, posted it on Facebook. I wake up in the morning, like post it on Facebook, use the bathroom, I come back and there's somebody being like, how much? And someone called me. I didn't even look at my Facebook yet. A friend of mine called me and like, how much? And I was like, $1,500. Just seeing, and they didn't even hesitate. They jumped on it, and I was like, and they're like, I'll take it. And they're like, I'll call you back in a little bit. I'm in the middle of a meeting. I was like, okay. So at that point, I like get in my car, drive to the shop. I get to the shop. It's been about 45 minutes since I made the post, and I have 20 messages from people who want to buy the piece, and I was blown away.
Wow, yeah, that's awesome.
I realized at that point that everyone who had met me in age at the trade shows and who had met me at EFO and knew that I was working for Mothership, they were paying attention to what I was doing, and they were really curious. And I didn't know at that point in time that I actually had a fan base and I had a following of people. It was a really surreal moment for me when I finally realized that people liked my work. People were collecting my Sherlocks. People were collecting my old spoons. People were going into stores and asking stores for my old work and buying it from stores so that they could have a peace of mind. And I was kind of oblivious to the whole collector market at this point. I mean, and like I said, that was only 2 years ago, not even quite 2 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
And so I called my friend back and I was like, yo, you want this piece? Like, what's up? And no answer. And I gave it like a little bit of time, and I finally sent text message being like, yo, I got a bunch of people asking. I'm going to see what's up. And so I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to sell this out from underneath the homeboy, I got to get more money for it. So the first person that asked, I started at the top of the list, and he asked me the price, and I was like, $2,000. And to me, that was like unheard of. Like I could not, I was just shooting in the dark, hoping I nailed something. And the very first person who grabbed it, it was Evan from Silica Gallery. And back then he used to go by Evan Bonghit on Facebook. And he bought the very first wormhole, $2,000, no questions asked. Boom, there you go. And I was just like, I was in like complete awe. I just paid 2 months rent for my house and my shop, and I had this month's child support payment.
Yeah, that's so cool, dude.
I was just like, holy shit. And then all of a sudden I was like, this is awesome. I can make these to support myself so that I can make this production line, and then I can drop this production line, and then I can use these as kind of like I only sell direct customers, and I wasn't selling them to shops in the beginning. That was kind of my thought. I was like, I'll only do direct customers so I can get the most I possibly can. And so I made a couple more, and like it was about a 3-month period. I made a couple of pieces. And I had made a couple of the wholesale orders that I had wanted, but what had happened, which was kind of funny and ironic, nobody wanted the Sherlock rigs, the wholesale orders. So I had 3 shops back out on the orders for me because they wanted a wormhole, and I wouldn't give them a wholesale price on the wormhole. And I was like, I'm still experimenting with it. I want to see what I can do with this piece before I start sending it to shops. I was like, if you guys want these pieces, like I really appreciate you taking these pieces. And 4 shops backed out. They said if they couldn't get at least a wormhole with the order, they couldn't do it. And I was like, look, I had $5,000 worth of product that we discussed beforehand. I told you this is what you're going to get. And now that I came out with this new product, I'm not going to make the new product for you. You're going to get what you ordered, what we agreed upon. And that didn't go over so well. So it left a little bit of a bitter, sour taste in my mouth dealing with shops.
Yeah.
I remember the days really vividly because it was a super stressful time in my life. April 24th, I woke up in the morning and decided that, or actually it was about a week before the 14th, I woke up and decided I was taking off out of town. I couldn't be in Bellingham anymore. It was just interesting. It was like my old shop was down the street. I had roommates with people who work at the ship still. I'm working in my own studio. All my friends in town. It's just like this weird period for me. So I was like, I want to leave. I want to figure out my space in this. My space. I want to find a spot. I'm still kind of in the same hunt. I've been on that hunt for a while.
Yeah.
I had talked to some friends of mine, Mr. Gray. I was going to go visit Mr. Gray. And I had talked to Blueberry and Sleek down in Portland. And I had talked to Cowboy and Marcel in Eugene, and I had planned out like a 6-week road trip. And so on April 24th, I woke up that morning. I had everything packed into my car, ready to go. And I grabbed the dog, and I filled up the gas tank, and I had $50 left in my pocket. And I had $10,000 to $15,000 in wholesale in cases full of product ready to sell. And I knew I was doing it. I was out of Washington. I'm going to go see where I can go and what I can do. And when I left, I went to Portland first and worked with those guys. And Sleek was my very first collab with the Wormhole. And we posted, they showed me Instagram. I remember this because I hit 1,000 followers on April 25th, and I was like, whoa, guys, I just got 1,000 followers. And they were like, you should do a giveaway. And I was like, what? And they're like, because I was new to Instagram. Like, I had put like 7 or 8 posts up before this. So I didn't even understand how I had followers. And they started explaining it to me, and they kind of taught me how to use social media, more than glasspipes.org
right.
and Facebook. And so at that point, I wasn't watching television. I wasn't playing video games. I was blowing glass really hard every day, 16 hours a day, every day, sometimes 18 to 20, just trying to get ahead, just trying to get this shit figured out. And when I did my first giveaway on April 25th, and I gave a Sherlock away, and then I was just like, I turned Instagram into it was my video game. It was my, how many likes a day can I get for this photo? How many comments can I get into, like, for these pieces? And I started kind of feeding off of that, which I feel a lot of people do in social media, whether they want to admit it or not.
Right.
I started getting really excited about, like, hearing back how people loved this new collab or that new collab. And it was really fun to be, like, selling work that way. When I came home from my 6-week road trip, I was like, I'm out. I had like 3 months left on my lease, and I was like, I got to figure something out. So I ended up finding someone to sublease my apartment for me, or sublease my bedroom and the house for me. I put everything into a storage unit, and my goal was to find a new place to live. I was going to find a shop to be at, and that was my goal. And I decided that I had this amazing opportunity because I'm friends with so many people in the industry over the years, going to these trade shows, and just, you know, as the employee of a really big shop or a big company, a lot of people that had big names that I had known really actually reached out to me and, like, talked with me and got to know them better. And because they respected the work that I was doing. And it was really cool. And I had all these friends on the East Coast, from Decon and Germ Lion, going back and forth to Philly for years. And they were all like, come out and visit us, come hang out. So I took 11 months and I went to every city in the country I thought I might want to live in.
Oh, that's badass.
And yeah, it was this awesome opportunity. It was like me and the dog. And at a certain point, I got some friends to watch my dog for a few months, so I could so I could fly out east and do those things. And right at that time, all this was happening. I got asked to be a part of Pipe Classic, and I was like, "Sure, I've never been in a competition. What do I got to lose?" And so now I had a goal on my road trip. It was to get to Vermont. at this time to compete in this competition, but I had no idea what I was going to make. So I bounced around, traveled around, came up with some ideas, went, hung out with Kurt B at his studio where I did my practice runs. And the whole time I was just really into the social media. My following was getting bigger and bigger every day. I was just like watching it grow. I actually had it all mapped out. I went from 1,000 followers April 24th, 2014. I had 1,000 followers on Instagram. April 24th, 2016, I had 39,000 followers that I had gained. I was 500 away from 40,000.
Jesus, dude.
So I
amazing.
gained almost 39,000 followers in a 2-year period off of just being me and living my life and having people get interested in it. And it's very surreal. It's super crazy to think that, like, you know, someone from a small town in the middle of nowhere without a high school education, you know, 2-time felon with a 19-year-old child, was like, all of a sudden, like, people are following, people are like interested in what he's doing. Like, it was overwhelming for me, to be honest.
Yeah, man, but you know, if you look at your journey though, so like up to this point, you definitely put the work in though. I mean, like you put out yourself in the right circles and the influences, and then like you said, you know, you went with Mothership, you went there as an employee, and you didn't go there. I mean, you were an artist, but you were still an employee, and you understood what your fucking role was. If you wanted to be there as an artist, it wasn't going to work, and because of that,
that's one of the things that I don't think a lot of people understand is like knowing your role when it comes to those things.
Yeah, you have to.
I probably wasn't, to be honest, probably the best employee. I'm a little headstrong and stubborn, and I like to argue from time to time.
It's all good, but you lasted long enough.
So yeah, we butted heads a few times, but every time it was always like at the end of the conversation we were friends and we were able to like go on.
Mm-hmm.
Even still to this day, like Jake and Scott are my brothers forever. Like, I love those guys. I love seeing them at the shows and just watching. I've watched their kids grow up. They've been a huge part of my life. I will continue to be a part of their life. So
yeah,
it's one of those awesome ones.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But that's definitely, like, I find a lot of people, what happened was with that whole social media thing is there's a lot of, like, everyone seeing us blow up. They see that this is the product that you make that sells. They didn't see the groundwork that went into getting your name built to where that product was able to sell.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
And that's a lot of times, like, as much as it is the artist that, like, kind of, like, sets his prices and does that, it's really, I've learned that our price points and all that is really determined off of our collector base. They have really set a lot of our prices. And sometimes it's not always, you know, in everyone's case, the most beneficial thing. Sometimes it puts you into a price point that then makes you unobtainable for the majority of collectors. But they still want to be into your stuff, so you got to get something for them.
Yeah, exactly.
But yet you're not making anything in their price range. So the most logical thing to do at that point is go for clothing. You start branding yourself. So that was why I came up with the suspenders. I had hurt my back and went to a doctor and was complaining about all these sciatica issues I was having. And he just took one look at my baggy pants, my tight belt, and said, "Take that belt off, put some suspenders on." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Try it out for a week and come back." I tried it out. My left leg would go to sleep in 5 minutes if I sat down. My belt was so tight, pinching on my nerves, I found out.
Huh.
So putting these suspenders on, I had this, like, free momentum. My sciatica wasn't getting pinched all the time. Like, even wearing sweatpants with that little bit of pressure messes with me. And so I switched over to suspenders, and it's been about 9 years now. So 2014, I was trying to figure out how to brand myself. And I was like, I don't want to make a fucking t-shirt. Every time I make a t-shirt, I put on a pair of suspenders, and this cool image that my buddy just spent all this time to make is now obscured with these suspenders. So anytime someone wants to look at the shirt, I have to like straighten up and, like move the suspenders to show them. It's an ordeal. It's not what I'm trying to do with my life. So I was like BSing with a buddy of mine, and I was like telling him my dilemma, and he's like, just make suspenders. And I was like, I can do that. I was like, whoa, I myself actually can do this. I can reach out to this company and have my logo and put them on there. It was like this crazy epiphany to me that it was like, whoa, I can actually do this. Like, oh, sweet. Like, instead of asking someone else to do it, it was like, I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did some research, and I found the only company in the U.S. that makes them. And I got my first pairs made, and it was awesome. They sold out right away. I was so stoked. I remember walking into, I think it was Vegas. I took them to Vegas, and I sold out like immediately. I was like, dang. I was having people, I posted them online, and like, people started ordering them online. And I had to get an assistant at that point to help me with shipping, because I was spending so much time dealing with shipping these suspenders and taking away from my glass. So then I was like, oh, I got to get back to glass. That was a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun trying to figure out how to brand yourself.
Yeah, it's a great idea though, man.
Really,
it's killer.
really expensive too.
Yeah, I could imagine. So yeah, it definitely is. Have you gotten feedback from anybody though that wears them, that has said that this helped?
Oh
them?
yeah, we love them. My number one selling point is Bob Snodgrass rocks them on the daily.
Right on. Hell yeah.
And to me, that's the coolest thing ever. Like, to have the guy who really started all of this, he's stoked every time he sees me. Like, even if he has a shirt on, he'll like lift up his shirt and be like, got him on. Every time
that's amazing.
He rocks them tougher than anybody else. And that's like, I always make sure anytime I see Bob, I make sure he has a fresh pair. If I get a new color out, I make sure Bob gets it right away. I just did American flag ones this year, red, white, and blue. So I had to make sure at DFO I got Bob a fresh pair of those, and he was stoked because he got to go to the Dead show wearing his red, white, and blue, his American suspenders.
That's gnarly.
Yeah, that's where, that to me is like the coolest part. And it was really funny because one of my buddies, Greg from Trident, made a really cool comment. He's like, man, I've been supporting myself for years on pipes, and now it's great because my pants can get supported by pipes too. And so it was just like this really funny play on words. But
that's funny.
It made me feel really good, and it just brought like a new thing into like what I was doing. I was like, wow. That's just like right up until 2015. 2014 was crazy at Pipe Classic. I came up with a really fun design. I thought it was a elephant wormhole, but the trunk went through the donut, and then on the side of the donut was the ears. But I made the elephant holding a mini tube, and it had one of my Sherlocks for the slide. And I was super proud of it. It's one of the biggest pieces that I had made at that point. I made it a time restraint. I had tracking issues, and I powered through them, and it looked beautiful. Like, you couldn't even tell. I was so proud of this piece. And we put it on display. And the cool thing about Pipe Classic is when you display your pieces, you get to stand next to your piece, and you get to tell the person what the piece represents to you. So I filled it full of water, and I hooked a vacuum pump to it. And that way people could see the function and see what it was actually doing.
Yeah, it's smart.
Because otherwise I had to bend over and take a pull off the piece every time someone walked up. And that's a lot of work to do and talk. So I was displaying it. I was really proud of the piece. Told everyone what it represented to me. It was kind of like a play on Dumbo. My goal was I wanted to make a pink elephant. And I wanted him to be drinking off of a beer bottle. And I was going to make a little circus hat for him with a feather dabber. And that was my mind was I was making Dumbo the pink elephant from the Disney movie that I grew up with and loved. And I was completely heartbroken because I couldn't get pink in tubing. And there was no way that I could do this project without having pre-pulled tubing.
Mm-hmm.
I just couldn't coil pot it in the time restraint. And Troutman Art Glass at that time was making the pink lollipop and the purple lollipop, and they were calling them transparent pink and blue, but I was calling them tranny pink and tranny purple. And I made the mistake of saying that in public, and then it got posted all over line. I was like,
God.
"Oh, you're it." No, guys, we're not really calling it that. So that's when they deemed it lollipopping.
That's fucking hilarious.
Yeah. But it was funny because it was like a whole bunch. It wasn't just me calling it. It was like a whole bunch of people calling it because that was the way it would show up on our labels.
Oh, yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah, totally.
So you're like, just started this funny joke. And so I was talking to Jenny, and she pretty much peed in my cornflakes and told me that she couldn't give me pink tubing. And I was devastated. And she's like, but we do have some purple. And I was like, what? She's like, we haven't released it yet. Like, if you want, you tell me the sizes, that we can get that pulled for you in time. And it was just like a thing of they would have done the pink for me, but they didn't have the pink pots ready. So I was like, all right, let's go with purple. I'm going to have to rethink this. And I was like, well, the really great thing was purple's my favorite color. So I was pumped about purple because I really like purple. And then I started thinking, I was like, I can't do a purple elephant drinking on a beer bottle because that's not going to register with people.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I doubt that the pink elephant drinking on a beer bottle would register Dumbo with half the age group that was at the show.
Right.
So I was kind of like stumped. I was like, oh, what to do? And I kept looking at the piece, and then it just kind of came to me. I was like, I should just make a mini tube. I was like, kind of use the elephant. The wormhole was like the new design I was doing, but then the sculptural aspect of the elephant was completely away from my normal style. So I wanted to bring something that was my style into the piece, and I was really into fume work. One of the techniques I was known for at the time was, and still am, is for this one spin rake pattern that I do. And I decided to make a mini tube in one of my Sherlocks to go on the piece, and I practiced, and it worked out great. By having the mini tube in the front, it made it a double bubbler. So
interesting.
It's like the mini tube had a down stem, it perked in the mini tube, and then it perked inside the body of the piece. So that was why I had the air running through it, so I could show this and explain to people, that the purple elephant, where my idea came from. I was like, it was going to be like childhood pink elephant, but I went purple and kind of gave the same spiel, and everyone loved it. And I got second place, which was fucking awesome. It was kind of funny because I was like, just not knowing how to be around people in a big crowd like that when competing, and just not dealing well with crowd in general. I was just like, I was next to the door. I was ready for this to be over. I'm ready for this to be over so we can go like hang out, go get high. Like, I'm tired of this award ceremony shit. Like, let's get out of here. And they called my name, and I was just like, are you what? And they're like, second place, come on up, JD. And I just remember like looking to my left, and Jock and Elbow were both right there, and they're really good friends of mine. And they were like, pushing me up to the stage and just like giving me pats on the back, and I won a new torch, and it was just like the craziest moment I ever had. Like I couldn't believe it. Like I really could not believe that my piece won over some of the other pieces in the show, because they were amazing. And it was super fun. That night I watched my piece auction off I watched my solo auction off for more money than I'd ever sold a piece for.
Amazing.
And that was $4,200. And I was just like, I was dumbstruck. I didn't know what to say or do or anything besides just grin and nod, smile and nod, man. Just smile and nod. It was surreal. And after that, I really wanted to do more than just make the same piece over and over. But at the same time, I wanted to make this piece over and over.
Right. I know that conflict.
I had just gotten asked, Micah Evans was setting up a class at Penland, and he told me about it, and I asked him if I could be a part of the class. And he told me to apply for this scholarship, and I applied, and I got accepted for the scholarship. And because I wanted to go down there and work with Micah, and just kind of like, the dude's amazing. He's like one of my favorite glass blowers. He's another guy that like has been extremely influential and behind the scenes in a lot of stuff that a lot of people don't know about. You know, without Micah's designs, you know, there's a lot of artists that wouldn't be doing their style right now, or their shapes and their perks. You know, definitely can say Mothership took some influence from Micah, and if it wasn't for some of his designs and Swiss perk, a combination of the two, you know, the Fab wouldn't have came about. So to be able to take a class with Micah in a concentration setting was amazing. It was like the opportunity of a lifetime.
Yeah, actually, I had him on the show. Like he was on like 6 months ago and talked about that. Had mentioned you being in the class, and he was telling me the caliber of the students that were in there. It was just like the first actual pipe class.
It was
like fucking crazy.
It was really fun, is because I knew everybody, except I knew most of them. I knew all but like 2 or 3 of them. But even then, I knew their work. 2 people in the class I had no clue of. Mongrel, he now works at Dream Labs. His name's Jack. He is an amazing glass blower, a super awesome person. Really, really stoked on the 2 months I got to spend with him and get to know him. And at that time, before the class, what was really crazy about before the class was we're like, Micah's figuring out the students for the class, and he would call me every once in a while and ask me about somebody, and I would tell him, be like, yeah, that guy's awesome. He's super good at good with people, because I traveled and I knew everybody. So Micah really valued my opinion when it came to like helping to have a class where everyone's going to be like copacetic with each other, you know. 8 weeks with the same people, it's a long time. And it's just really interesting. So at that period, I also got asked to do my first solo show with Emerald Glass Gallery, and I didn't really know what to do or how to do it. And at Penland, I came up with the idea on how I was going to do the show.
Cool.
I had realized that the wormhole was a canvas. You know, it was a design that I made that I could use it as a canvas. And I had watched Coil do this previously with the Moneys.
Yeah. And
if it was like, Coil really opened up the door for this for me and for a lot of other people. Taking a design, taking a piece, and not being limited with it to its shape. So yeah, you can use the same shape over and over, but if you're making it with somebody different every time, it's a different piece. They're all different. They're not the same. They're unique. And if you do it by yourself, every one you do by yourself, you make that one different than the other one. So you're always decorating your canvas differently, and you're evolving your own personal work. But at the same time, you can work with an array of artists. So when I left Pinland, when I was at Pinland, I made it my goal as I made a collab with everybody in the class for the show. Couple people, the pieces didn't work out. Then I spent the next 3 months traveling around the country, working with people to make pieces and saving up pieces for the show. And I spent a month at my house, so 4 months. It was actually about a 6-month period that I cut off sales to get ready for the show, which is one of the craziest things I've ever done. Not having money come in for 4 months or for 6 months is insane.
Yeah, it's scary.
If it wasn't for Emerald Glass Gallery sponsoring this endeavor that I went on, and he would help me out, because the other one is it's hard to talk an artist into saving something for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're all trying to get paid. We're all trying to paycheck to paycheck. So to talk these guys into saving pieces sometimes wasn't doable. So I would cash them out. And I had Emerald Gallery cash out a bunch of pieces. And I even took a withdrawal from them before the show, so that I could pay off all my bills and get everything squared away to have the first show. And that was intense, because by the end of it, I had 49 pieces made with 37 different artists.
Wow, that's fucking awesome.
It was 37 or 38 different artists. So there was just like, we had sculptural, we had fume, we had, there was just so many pieces. And the whole moment was like, the whole experience was extremely surreal. At the very end of getting ready for the show, I was sleeping in my studio. I'm kind of doing that right now. I have a fold-up cot, and I would work until I got tired, and I'd pull it out, pass out in front of my torch, and when I'd wake up, I would just go right back to work. I was having people bring me food to the shop. I literally chained myself to my torch and did not walk away from it for almost 3 weeks. It was insane.
Yeah, it's intense.
I was having an artist come through every other day. I would have someone flying in from out of town to work with me. And the only time I would leave the shop would be to go get food and come right back. And the lucky thing for me is where my studio is right now is in the heart of the Alberta Arts District in Portland, Oregon. So when I walk out my front door, I go 20 feet, take a left or a right, and I got 30 choices of food.
Wow.
I've never been in a shop in the country that has as many choices for food within a 6-block walk.
That's amazing.
As my shop.
I'd be 400 pounds. Holy shit.
Oh, dude, I put on 25 pounds. It's horrible, but it's great. So, like, that was some really fun. Those were, like, some fun moments. And I tried to, even though I was working hard, really take moments to, like, soak in the experience and, like, have fun. And one of the things that I did on getting ready for that show, and I haven't seen too many people do it, and for me, it was what made it really fun, was how do you promote something but not let anyone see it?
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to. I have this thing, and a lot of shops and artists do this right now, and it bugs the hell out of me. I go to art shows for a painter. I know about the show for 3 months. I've seen one piece that the artist made. So when I show up to that art show, everything that's hanging on that wall is fresh. It's new. I am one of a handful of people that are the very first people to get to see these pieces hung in a gallery. That's an amazing moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I made it my goal, and when I started doing my shows, I was like, I'm not going to show anyone anything. I want to do this like a true gallery. And I talked to Emerald about it, and Emerald was really hesitant on it because he's like, how am I supposed to hype a show for you and you won't send me photos of the pieces so that I can hype it? And the artists were saying the same thing, like, how are people going to know the pieces are there if you're not showing them off and letting them know? And I was like, I'm doing it. And I was showing photos of us working on the pieces. I was showing action shots of that artist, and then like in between shots of the piece getting made, like just little up close piece shots of the can or a marble, or I put the piece up right and I get a silhouette of the show thing. So I give people just enough that they wanted to know what was happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it created it created the hype.
Yeah.
Because everyone wants to see what's going on next. It's like they want to be part of the new thing. And if nobody knows what it is, then it's like you're on the same playing field with everybody. So it's in your best interest to get to the show first. Because if you're first, then you get first choice.
Yeah,
no brainer.
Exactly. Yep. Smart.
So, and it really paid off well because, I mean, at the opening of the show, I think we sold half the pieces. Or we sold 24 pieces opening day, and then Reed ended up selling the rest Emerald sold the rest over the next few months, which was nice because it was like a steady flow of income coming in for me. And during that time, I'd made like, my most expensive pieces ever. And when one of my solos sold, I was just like in this complete dumbfounded awe, like glowing moment in life where I'm just like, I'm now able to like, at that very moment, it was the first time in my life I ever broke even. I was able to go back and pay all my back child support. I was able to pay off my student loans. I was able to like take care of all my bad debt. And for the first time in my adult life, I was at zero.
Yeah, bro. Congrats. That's fucking awesome.
That, thank you. That to me is a huge accomplishment. Like,
yeah, it is.
I was, pretty down with a lot of that stuff. And California has a weird thing with child support where they have interest on it, so it stacks. So it was like to a point to where it's like, I've paid, 31 years of child support, and my daughter's 19.
Wow. That's fucking, yeah, I thought Florida's child support laws were fucked up. That's crazy, dude. Holy shit.
Yeah. I had to, in one lump sum, take almost my whole earnings from the show and give it all away in one chunk.
Yeah.
But then I got to walk away with my head up. And
yeah, exactly.
It was the most amazing feeling ever. And that's also one of those things where everyone in this industry sees, like, you make a lot of money real fast. And they're like, he's making money, he's doing good. And they don't know the behind the scenes. They don't know like what it took to get to where you're at. And like, how many times did you sacrifice, doing something for this or that? And it was crazy because for the first 8 years of my daughter's life, I was crazy. I didn't know where I was going. And then 4 years into it, I found glass. And then 4 years later, I was able to actually support myself and then, didn't miss a payment for 10 years. But I wasn't able to pay the back. And that bit me so hard that it was quite the crazy moment. But from that moment, I had bought a round trip ticket to Spain because I had talked to Slinger after the show, and he'd given me a congratulations and told me how proud he was of all the hard work I did. And he told me about he was going to the European Flame-Off, and I was like, wow, that sounds awesome. I'd love to go. And he was like, get your passport and you can go. I was like, oh, that's all I got to do. So I grabbed a passport and I took off and I backpacked around the country for 2 weeks and got to have these crazy fun experiences, Salvador Dali Museum and all kinds of fun stuff I could go into. But it was that crazy surreal moment. And when I came back, I had to get ready for my next show. And I didn't want to have another show. I just wanted to go back to Spain.
Right.
I was wanted to break. But because of all of that, then the next show I did was at Honey Drop, and I kind of did the same thing where I used the piece as a canvas. And from that, I've kind of gone into now where I'm still doing it. I'm still using the wormhole as a canvas. I'm trying to restrict them down now to where I'm not making them with people I've already made them with. So if me and you have made a wormhole together, let's figure out some other designs. Let's make some mini tubes. Let's make some Sherlocks. Let's make some other stuff. Like, we don't always have to make a hit single. You don't always have to make a club banger. You can make that intimate John every once in a while. It's okay. So I've been really trying to only work with people this year that I haven't worked with before, or if it is with somebody that I have worked with, we're doing it a completely different piece than we've done before. Just so that way it keeps it fresh and evolving.
Yeah, it's smart.
Kind of, to be honest, I'm partially tired of making the wormholes. I've made so many at this point that they all kind of run together, and the whole scenario is just moving on. But it's hard because it's my bread and butter. You can't give up something that supports you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know what you mean.
And at the same time, I really love making new ones. I like making that new design, that new combo, using techniques that I wouldn't do. That to me is like the coolest thing, is two people coming together to create a piece that they wouldn't make without the other person.
Yeah, I think that's what's so awesome with our industry, and like it's the true collaboration of two artists coming together. Yeah,
and because of that, like I don't really participate in mail orders. I've done a few. I did 3, and as much as I love and respect the artists that I work with, it didn't. At the end of the day, it didn't feel like a collaboration. It felt like I was working for someone making a product. And so since then, I don't send my sections to anybody. I work with them in person. If today's not the day, next month might be. And I kind of just keep that as a level playing field, because I like the intimacy of the way my work comes out, doing it that way.
Yeah, makes total sense.
So I had to take a quick break.
Oh, you're good, man.
Yeah, this year's been really interesting because after all those shows, trying to figure out, myself and what I wanted to do, I got asked to demo in Spain for the European Flame Off fundraiser, and I couldn't pass that up. So I ended up grabbing Mike Rahman, who's one of the guys I took the Penland class with. I grabbed Rahman. We flew over to Spain and met Dosher and hung out with a bunch of all the European guys, which is just crazy because it's like the European market they're like 10 years behind us.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're still making the same work as us. So, it's interesting because they learned off social media. They literally watched YouTube videos to figure out how we're doing this. But then there's just like certain things that they don't understand with bracing, with just like techniques and stuff. So it's been fun to go over there and like talk with everyone and like exchange knowledge, because I've learned a lot from the guys too. And the whole time all this was going on, I've been doing the whole JD's road trip hashtag and documenting everything really well on Instagram. Some friends of mine, we were like joking around one day, and my buddy was like, "Man, kind of wish I could, like see what it was like for you to go through all this stuff and do that. Like, it'd be cool if there was, you know, something that showed me a window into your world, because like I understand. He's like, I know you, and I know what you do. He's like, but I don't quite understand it all. He's like, and we were just talking about like the networking with all the different artists and working with them and stuff. And so I started bouncing ideas around about having a camera crew follow me for a little while. And I was bouncing the idea around, and I vocalized it to a couple of studios, a couple of friends, and they were like, I would sponsor that. And then I had to figure out, like, whoa, these guys would sponsor that? Like, huh. And this was like January. It was like February this year. I was like, huh, I wonder what I could do. And I looked into it, and I did all the math for a camera crew, and I figured out how much money it would cost to get the camera crew out, to fly them up, to lodge them, to feed them, because, you know, you're bringing them from their home environment to here, to put them in a hotel, so you got to feed them. It's either coming out of their paycheck or you are.
Mm-hmm.
So I gave everyone food per diems, like a $50 a day food per diem. Eat what you want, do what you want. I'm not responsible. But here's $50 to eat off of. So it was really nice. But I got all those numbers figured out, and then I created kind of like my own Kickstarter. But I didn't want to do Kickstarter because I kind of felt like Kickstarter's is like the modern day panhandling. I've watched it work really well for a lot of my friends, and I've seen it do some amazing stuff. But at the same time, every time I watched my friends do amazing stuff with Kickstarters, and I've seen what people have done these really cool projects with, there's always this underlying tone when people talk about it, about how they ask for handouts, and, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was just like this weird feeling, so I wanted to try to avoid that. So I created my package, which was like an advertisement fee. That was like all I had to offer. I didn't really know what to offer anybody, so I was like, I'm going to use my social media exposure. I got 40,000+ followers. You know, they're obviously paying attention to me. So let's use that momentum to help with my sponsors. So I started my package, and it was like, all right, you guys are going to get 2 social media shout outs a week, each personalized to you. You guys are going to get, like, you know, your name in the credits on the trailer and in the video. And this is all like, I don't even know how to fucking edit a film. I don't know anything about this shit. So this is me just like making up like what I'm going to give you. And it all sounded really good. And I talked to a friend and hired him on for a project manager. And so we're like doing all this stuff, and all of a sudden the camera guy that I had hired wasn't going to work out. So we had to find someone new. And then they were over the budget. So right from the get-go, when we started filming, I knew we were already over budget. And I was like, all right, it's going to be fine. It's going to work itself out. And it was fun. So we started off, I had AKM, Alex Ubatuba, Matt Atienza, Itai, Brandon Welk, and then my shopmate Todd Chili Ortega all work with me the first 4 days of filming. So we had 2 people. We have two extra stations in my shop. I had 2 people every day that we were working with and we were collaborating with, and we're doing interviews and talking. And like, I didn't know at that point what to expect with what filming was even like. I had never been on a film set. I had never done any of this stuff. Like I said, I don't have a high school diploma. Like I don't read and write very well. So like figuring out a storyline, like doing that and working with this director and doing all these things, or it's all like complete foreign ground for me. And it was a lot of fun. And the whole time I'm like trying to support myself, and I had a full-time employee. Right now I'm in the middle of that. And so it was pretty intense. The whole raising money, basically like walking around. I called 20 shops, asked 20 shops. I kind of pitched it. So I told them my idea. I was like, yeah, so like, this is my idea, and this is what I want to do. This is how I'm going to do it, but I need your help. I need your sponsorship, and this is the package I have for you. And I had set a goal of 10 sponsors, because those 10 sponsors would, by my mind, take the budget that I had made up. And like I said, I'd only taken into filming at this part into consideration. So I stopped when I got my 10 sponsors, because that was all the money I needed in my mind. And hindsight is definitely 20/20 in every situation.
Especially with filming.
Yeah, I would ask for 20 sponsors now.
Yeah.
It's insane. Because like I said, by the end of it, we were already over budget. Before we left, I knew we were over budget. But I also just, I've done so many things in my life on just believing and going off of my gut, and just, like stepping fully out of my comfort zone and immersing myself into it. Like, if I wouldn't have done that with glass, I wouldn't be where I am.
Yeah, exactly.
So I figured, the worst thing that could happen is I make a film. That's the worst, The worst thing is I make this thing and nobody likes it. But at the end of the day, at least I tried it and I did something that no one else did. And that's a damn good feeling.
Yes.
To know that that's like the mindset and what you're going at. So it's kind of like the same thing when you're thinking of a new piece of glass. You're wanting to do something that takes influences from everyone and everything that you came in contact with, but yet still make it your own. So like, I just got back from LA dealing with the editors, and it's been a lot of fun. Like, at the end of it, I had to borrow some money from friends. Instead of asking for more sponsorships, I have taken on the whole editing costs myself. And they're almost equal to the filming costs right now, which is pretty intense.
Oh yeah, bro. I know all about that post-production. Like, when I first did this podcast, I was doing 30 hours a week just on post-production.
Yeah.
Until I learned it.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So I've gone through and we've been doing all this stuff. We did all the filming, but there's a lot of stuff that was like, I didn't take into consideration before the filming, that if I would have thought about it, I would have been a little bit more frugal, the 3 months leading up to the filming, instead of right then, now I have to make money right now. I took a week off before I started filming, and I made prep work, because I knew I was going to be traveling for 3 weeks, going to different studios. So for 3 weeks straight, I just made as much prep work as I possibly could. And then when we started filming, I had all this prep for everybody, and I just hand it out, and we'd just be pushing through, making product constantly. It was a lot of fun. And the basis of the film it's called Vagabong, the American Pipe Dream. And there's link to it on my website, J.D.Maplesden.com. And there's, it's also on Vimeo and on YouTube under Vagabong, the American Pipe Dream. When we started filming, we had an idea of what it was. I had an idea of what I wanted. And my ideas changed a little bit based on content of what we got and the direction in which I want to see things go. So in the beginning, I really wanted to make something that was about the whole scene, that was about how amazing this industry is and how, like, what it means to me and what it represents to me. And I didn't want to be like a standing image in the film. Like, I didn't really want it to be about me. I didn't want to be highlighted at all, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
I just kind of wanted to be the one who made it happen, but not have to be the one with the spotlight on me. And learning about storyline development and learning about the way editing and all that process works, we figured out that if I wanted to make it about the broad spectrum of the industry, then this was going to be a project that's going to take me a few more, like at least another year or longer, because I'm going to have to get a bunch of backstory on different artists and do all this stuff. But then at that point, I'm pretty much doing another Degenerate, and I didn't set out to do another Degenerate art. You can't. It's so good by itself. Like, you can't ever, no one will ever be able to reproduce what Slinger got with that movie.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're left with trying to create something new. And then it goes back to that whole, like, how do you do something new that's different than what, you know, has already been laid out for you? And so I started watching a lot of, you know, documentary style shows and just documentaries and seeing, like, the way things go. And now we got like a really good direction that we're moving with the film. It's basically a 3-week glimpse into my life. The goal is to open up a window into the industry for people to take a look at and get interested. Basically get to watch me travel around and work with all these different artists, find out why some of these artists are, you know, or who these artists are, just kind of talking about the places that we're going to, DFO, Chalice, we're at Ziggy Smoke Shop working, and kind of just use me as like the catalyst that brings everyone around, because that's what happened. So now we're just the whole thing's going to be basically about the trip and about how someone like myself makes a living, you know, or how I personally do. Like, you know, they followed me the whole way through the stuff. Everything we made on the trip, I also saved up. I've had it photographed, and I'm making a book for the film.
Cool.
So it's going to be, so on top of having the film out, when it's done, we'll have a nice coffee table reader that will give you like a little, they'll tell you what these pieces were made for and what it was, and that it's tied to this movie. And it was really cool to have that. Like, I think by creating multiple layers in this project, it's making it a lot of fun for people to pay attention to.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
And even for myself, because it's like, I'm not doing just one thing. And what's nice is I've stayed to my role. I'm really good at what I do, and that's blowing glass. I'm also good at having ideas and getting things started. I'm good at getting things motivated and moving. And once the ball's rolling, things are going good, then I kind of like to step out and just like watch stuff happen. And that's kind of the way it's been with the film. You know, with the editors, I get this idea going, and then I let him do his art, and comes back, and then I'm just like, wow. Like, he just, like, when he brought that trailer back, I was just blown away.
It's killer.
You know, the first time I watched it, I had goosebumps from head to toe and almost in tears, because it was, yeah, it harnessed what I wanted. It gave people just enough glimpse and a little bit of story to make them interested in what I'm doing.
Oh, dude, it totally covers it.
And
Yeah, I completely agree. I was blown away by it.
yeah, and the quality of the film, I'm still blown away. Like, I was there watching it get shot the whole time, and when I seen it for the first time, I was blown away. I was like, whoa, I'm making a movie. Like, holy shit. Like, this is like everything at that point. Like, even though I had filmed and I'd gone through all of that, none of it was real until the moment I seen that trailer. And when I seen that trailer, everything came into play, and I was just like, wow, it's happening. Like, we're doing this. Like,
Yeah, it's
you know,
amazing. Yeah, it's so cool. Do you have an expected release date for it?
No, I don't. We're still doing the editing. We're really hoping to have it out in March. We're hoping to have it released in March, but that's still a big if. So I decided, instead of trying to stress out and put deadlines on everything and make it all more stressful than it has been already, I'm just kind of letting it organically happen. I'm waiting until I have a hard copy in my hand before I tell people this is when I'm releasing it.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Because otherwise it's going to be like, push it back and push it back and push it back and push it back. Like, we were already supposed to be done, I thought. But, you know, I also didn't know that you had to edit film once you're done recording it. Like,
oh yeah, then you have filler shots and voiceover. Oh, dude, it's an incredible process. It's something I love myself. But fuck.
Dude, I got sound engineers, graphic design guys. There's so many layers to it that it's mind blowing.
Yeah, it's amazing when you see a trailer at the end, or not a trailer, but like the credits at the end of a film, and it's like 10 minutes long, and you can really understand what goes into a movie.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I also realized is, like, I could do this faster, but that's more money. That's like more people, more money, more things to manage, and that's not what I have right now. I've pulled myself quite thin on this project. And luckily for me, I have some really amazing friends and an amazing collector base right now that really believe in the project that I'm doing and in me, and are helping making this project come to reality. It's cool. Like, being a part of this industry for me means a lot. Like, there's so many different aspects of it. The glass is one part of it. The friendships and the relationships that you have, for me, it's the biggest part of the industry for me right now, because I love the glass so much, but it's my life. And I'm lucky that I have this family of glass blowers around me that are like-minded. Like, we like each other, we think alike, we eat, we do all these different, we eat out, we do all these different things together that I don't see in other industries. I've never in any industry seen where your best friend's your competitor, but your competitor's your best friend.
Mm-hmm.
It's like going to the DFO, man. You're sitting there at the DFO and watching E-Tide blow glass against Phil Siegel, and they're best friends and blew glass in the same studio and learned together, and now they're like competing against each other, working in separate studios. So it's like, literally, like, even though they're competing, they're best friends. Yeah. I've never seen that in any industry. Skateboarding, even skateboarding, there's still a lot. Skateboarding would probably be the only industry I could see that in, where you would compete against your buddy, but at the end of the day, the competition really doesn't mean shit. Y'all just skated and had a good day.
Yeah, exactly. And if anything, being friends like that helps to push and drive you, because like we were watching Skin Wars. It's like a documentary on body, or not a documentary, but like a show on body painting and competition wise. Yeah. And they got to a point in the competition like where these two people, they had like a paint off basically to see who was going to win the round. And this dude totally just gave up because he felt like he couldn't compete against the girl. And I'm like, you should have been driven to be even
at
better.
least tried.
Yeah, like don't fucking tap out, dude. Like it's a competition. It is what it is. At the end of the day, you guys are gonna still be friends.
Yeah, that for me goes into the feeling of failing will never be as bad as the feeling of wondering if you could have succeeded.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well said, dude.
So, you know, that always wondering, like, what would have happened if I would have, you know. My only one that I have is before I started blowing glass, I was big into dancing and rave scene, and I thought I wanted to be a backup dancer. I wanted to be in music videos. I wanted to figure out how to be in music videos and on stage and, you know, be a professional dancer, like break dance. At that time, I was dating a girl who was a professional jazz dancer. She did jazz, classical ballet, tap. She taught dance classes and did all kinds of stuff like that. And she showed me, and I went to Seattle and applied to this dance school. And while I was waiting to see if I got accepted was when I tried glass blowing for the first time.
Huh. Fascinating.
So it was literally like the one that I have is like, I wonder what would have happened if I would have just accepted that, you know, would have went to school.
Well,
like,
how many people know that?
Then I look at this and I'm like, I have everything. Like my 18-year-old self would be giving I'd be just like dancing around in circles to find out that this is where I'm going to be.
Yeah.
You know, that would just be like, I make bongs for a living? Are you kidding me? Like, are you going to do what? I travel? Like, holy shit. Like, it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
like,
it is.
I definitely am blessed beyond measures when it comes to this, and really want to give back as much as I can. And that's what I'm really hoping with this film is like my way to give back to the industry that I've taken so much from.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, you're doing a great job at it, brother. I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing the story. I mean, fuck, it's been 2 hours. It feels like it's been 10 minutes. It's like, I can say,
I'm sitting here being like, fuck, I should go eat.
I know. I'm like, I can sit here and listen to you talk all day. You're the first artist I've had on here where I just shut the fuck up. I've just been enjoying this conversation because, you know, there's so many people in our industry, young kids that, like you're saying, they don't see the hard work that goes into what we do. I mean, we're all going to be 20-year overnight successes. That's what I call it. You know, I'm going on 18 years now myself. I got about 2 more years, and then I'll be where I want to be. And until then, I'm going to bust my ass and keep working, you know?
Yeah, that's the thing is for me is it's like I don't think I'll ever be able to get to where I want to be because I don't know where I want to be.
Yeah.
All I know is I want to be able to do this medium no matter what. And the thing that I don't think a lot of people understand is what you have to do sometimes to do it. Sometimes you have to take a job.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you have to work for the man and make money and go in after hours and work this like your second job and like do that, you know. Sometimes you have to, you know, and for me it's like when it came to the point where like I needed to get a job was right when I was working for Swissberg. I'd honestly gotten into a little bit of a tuffle with the law and was getting in some trouble, and I needed to change my lifestyle. And I had taught myself and I'd been blowing glass up to this point, and I was like, this is like, I'm already good enough that I can make a living at this. I'm friends with some of the biggest names in the industry. Like, I need to start doing something. But I was so in my mind that I couldn't work. Everything I made, I broke because it's hard to be creative when you're stressed out.
Yeah, it's so true.
And it's hard to, like, when you're trying to figure out your life stressed out, it's hard to travel. And to, like, that was how I sold my product, was traveling. It was very stressful.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I preach that shit all the time on this show. Like, especially for the new kids that are starting. Like, you have to not quit. Like, you can't. If you have a job, don't quit your job. Keep working your job and do your glass on the side until you can eventually
I
do
had
it.
a job for the first 2 years I blew glass. But that was like why I worked for Swiss Perk and why I worked for Mothership. It was like not only were they opportunities to work in a shop and learn on some equipment that I wouldn't have been able to any other way, it was also the means to the ends. It paid my child support and paid my rent and gave me 20 hours a week that I could explore my own creativity. And that's when I started doing fume work. Like, I was so frustrated with like work. I didn't like it. My stuff looked like everybody else's. There's no diversity, or there was a lot of diversity in the scene, but a lot of stuff all looked the same to me.
Yeah, I agree.
And I wanted to do something different, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And by taking the job, it gave me the opportunity to build my skill level up to my idea level. And I think a lot of people skip that, and they're just like, they have the idea and they just jump full force into it, and they're making it. They're learning how, and they're making it. But sometimes taking steps backwards and learning fundamentals through production work, really good hand skills, is good for you. And people don't like to hear that a lot of times. They don't want to make production. They want to make headies. Look, that's how these people made it. They make headies. That's all they make. It's like, yeah, but what about the production lines? I remember their production lines.
Yeah, and they don't see the production.
Everybody who is somebody right now, at one point in time, had a production line.
Yep, and probably still does. Of something, even if it's just penance.
Yeah, I mean, it's turned into that their headies are their production.
Yeah.
They've gotten so good at making their heady work that it's almost a production now.
Yeah, it's high.
They know exactly what to do every time to get this desired effect. So, you know, they're just using a lot more vocabulary. When I took a class from Johnny Coso years and years ago, and he told me that learning to blow glass is like learning to read. You got to learn your ABCs. You know, you're like pulling a point, your cold seal, before you can put letters together to form words, which are like techniques, and techniques would be like ribbon canes or implosions. And then once you learn how to put words together, then you learn how to put sentences together, which is like, you know, a short sentence could be like a Sherlock or a sidecar or a mini bub or a tube. And then, like, you know, hopefully you can do like some poetry, write a poem. Your piece kind of can be a poem in essence. It speaks for itself. You can set it down and it represents this moment in time or these things. And some artists like Banjo are really good at that. Joe Peters, or Punny, a lot of guys are really good at like grabbing everything around them and putting it into this piece that represents this time. And that stuck with me for many, many years. And I think it's like one of the best advices is, you know, you're not learning to blow glass overnight. This is like taking years, just like learning to speak and learning to read. You know, 2 years into it, man, you're like a fucking first grader, second grader learning to read.
Yep.
You know, by the time you're 10 years into it, you're starting to develop words and sentences, and you're starting to get your ideas out there. Some people learn way faster than others, and that's awesome. But my advice always is to like learn your fundamentals. If you don't know your fundamentals, it's like drawing. Like, there's a lot of guys who can do a lot of things, but they only can do that one thing because that was what they were known for.
Yeah, exactly.
And being diverse with stuff is the best thing that you can do. To be honest, I feel that that's one of the things I need to work on myself is being more diverse, creating more products, doing different stuff. So next year I'm doing my own solo shows, kind of moving things in a different direction for myself, to explore my own shapes and ideas that I want to do some more of, and kind of just build a body of work because I like to make a lot of different stuff.
Yeah,
I've only been making one thing for a while.
Well, I look forward to seeing it, brother, for sure. Because I'm in the same boat myself. Next year is going to be my year of exploration in my work, for sure. Like,
Nice.
no customs, no nothing. I'm just going to focus on just what I want to do. On top of, I have a whole online class I'm going to be launching in January, which is a fundamental class, so that people can then take the fundamentals and do whatever they want to do. Yeah, the first one's going to be a 90-day class, so it's like first month is solid, second month is hollow, and the third month will be a collaboration of both. So that way, if they go see a Dustin Revere video or somebody else online that has a video, they can actually understand it and not just be like, oh, I can do that. And then that's all they can do, like you're saying. You know, like how many people out there right now can just do clines? These guys can make amazing clines, but that's all they can do. Make me a wrap and rake spoon, bitch, and they can't fucking do it. You know what I mean? So it's
Most
like...
of those guys don't want to do that, though.
No, they don't. I know, and that's the problem.
But you got to think about it like this. Like, when you came into it, when we were coming in, to be a good glass blower, you had to make wine goblets.
Mm-hmm, right.
That was tell your skills. Let's see you make a goblet. If you made a really nice goblet, you were good. You know?
Yep.
And then it was like, how about reversals? Can you make reversals? Oh, reversals? Radicellos? Oh, you can do reversals and radicellos? You're good. You know, now It's like the cline. You make a cline, you're good. You make, you know, skulls, you're good. You do this, you're good. And it's a hard one because, you know, as an artist who comes up with a design, you know, when you see someone else making it, it's frustrating because you're like, I want to make this. Like, I'm trying to do this. Like, don't fuck with my shit. But at the same time, saying that doesn't do any good.
Mm-hmm.
Saying that actually is really bad. And it goes for these reasons. The person who just made that piece was inspired by your work. They didn't make that because they were trying to take the money you're making. They made it because they're truly inspired by that piece, and they wanted to see if they were good enough to make that piece.
Yep.
Because to them, if they can make that piece, they're good. And they are. They're good enough to make that piece, and that's amazing. And then the other one is when they made that piece, their best friend came over that day, gave them a huge pat on the back, told them how awesome that piece was, told them how much he loved that piece, probably even bought the piece. Kid may be selling the piece. He might not even be selling it. It could be an experiment. You never know. So getting on and saying something to someone about it is, to me, the best thing to do. Is it's like, in my way of blowing glass, I've taken a lot of inspiration from different people. I've tried a lot of stuff that I've seen others do. And I tried it. And then I moved on.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go after somebody who makes your piece and you're like, yo, bro, and you beef on them and you're like, step up to them and you're like, yo, dude, what the hell? Like, why are you doing this? Get your own thing. Do your own original. And to them, they're like, I put my wigwags, my colors into it. I did my originality. It's original. It's mine. It's not what you do. I changed it by doing this and this. It's like, to them, they did it different than you did, even though it's still your piece.
Right.
But it's not. It's their piece. It's different than what you did because they're different than you.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of getting upset with them and doing that, it's like, either give encouragement or don't say anything. Like,
yeah, I agree.
Don't piss on someone, rain on someone's parade, because at the end of the day, they're feeling good about what they did.
Yeah, next thing you know, they're the next badass out there.
Yeah, and do you want to be the guy who, like, tells everyone what they're doing is wrong and that they shouldn't be doing this because it's yours? Or do you want to be the guy who just, like, doesn't care and just does his own thing?
Yeah. Because
he doesn't need to worry about what other people are doing. When I was at the Micah Evans class, we had a guy come in, Tom Dyson, the guy from Dyson Vacuums. He's on the board of representatives of Finland, and he came in to our class and sat in and one evening hung out with us all and gave us a little bit of words of advice around a bottle of whiskey, and it made perfect sense. He told me, the minute that you start worrying about what your competition is doing, you're already losing money.
It's so true.
He said, don't think about what they're doing. They're trying to figure out what you're doing. If you're trying to figure out what they're doing and why they're doing it, you're losing. Just move forward. He's like, if they copy that design, make a better one.
Yep, exactly.
And it's, but to me, it's just like, I've had so many positive people, in my life. Ghost World, he's one of my favorite glass blowers. He's been a really good friend of mine for many years, but he has this amazing ability to see the good in everything. And I don't mean just like the good in people or the good in like a bad situation. I mean that like he can pick up a piece of scrap off of your table that you're just like, oh, ho hum about. And he will pick the one spot on that piece that he truly likes.
Huh.
And then we'll show you this one part that's amazing on this piece. He's not telling you the whole thing you did is amazing because it's a turd. He looks and he finds the good in what you're doing and he points it out and he builds you up off of that. And when he walks away, he never told you a negative thing about your piece. He only told you the positives about your piece. So when you look at that piece, you no longer see these negative aspects of it. You see these positive things, and then you start striving after that positivity. And you start going after those good things that this guy just pointed out that were really cool to him and that you liked. And that might have been the one part of the piece that you liked. And from having him in my life and seeing him do that, it's taught me a lot about when someone shows you their work. You can criticize it or you can like be stoked, find something to be stoked about on it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to like it.
Yeah, it's so smart.
You don't have to like it, but there is going to be one part or one aspect of that piece that is good and that you can use as like a way to build someone up. And that's like one of the things that I really love about the guy. And, I kind of wish I would see that more throughout the full industry of everybody. But it's hard. It's hard to sit around and see people copy your work, or it's hard to see, people copying your friends' work. And that's probably one of our biggest things right there is people speaking up for other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, I completely agree. There's so much negativity. It's not as prevalent as it has been in the past, but there's still a lot of horse shit and the trolls out there. So it's that kind of positivity is huge, and that's why I love doing the show. I mean, this is a positive outlet where I can bring our community together, and like we just did a pennant trade, and like maybe 94% of those that participated actually followed through. And I was actually pretty surprised that number actually followed through. But because those that got involved with it are awesome and they were all about it and being positive about it because they enjoyed the aspect of us getting together as a community and sharing it. And, I got a pennant from a kid who's been doing glass for 6 months and I love it. It isn't the best thing in the world, but I cherish it because this kid has been doing this for a little bit of time and he put his heart and soul into it. And now it's a part of my collection. It's amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah, honestly, I've been getting a lot of stuff from collectors recently, or not collectors, but other glass blowers at shows, like marbles and stuff, where they're just like pumped on they're pumped on this marble, they're pumped to meet me. So,
Yeah.
So they're all like excited to give me a marble, or and I collect marbles, so I'm always pumped when I get a marble. I was like, fuck yeah, man, you gave me the one thing I love to collect. But fun. It's like I also have like this whole array of pendants, and it's like half the people, honestly, I remember the transaction of getting the piece. Your name? Something.
Right.
Hold on, I got someone.
Yeah.
What? Actually, I'm gonna have to go. I have my neighbor here.
Yeah, you're good, dude. Actually,
I might have to call back here in just a minute.
No, it's actually good timing wise. I was actually gonna say, So if we can,
All right.
I gotta
Have a
wrap this
good
up
day.
soon.
I'll talk to you in a little bit.
Yeah, man. We'll be in touch.
All
All right, man. Peace.
What's up?
Yeah. All right, cool. Yeah, man. 2 hours and 17 minutes. Crazy, right?
Yeah, it is.
It's awesome.
My dog's ready for breakfast.
Yeah, I'm sure you are too.
Yeah, we go to breakfast at this little spot down the street from my studio.
Oh, nice.
They make him up a little bowl of food.
That is so fucking cool. We got a couple spots here. I live in this little town called Dunedin. It's like a little artsy fartsy town on the water here, and they have it like dog friendly. Almost every restaurant is dog friendly here. It's awesome. It's too cool. So, all right, man. We had a weird pause there from whatever, but dude, I sincerely I appreciate you coming on and taking your time to share your story. I mean, literally, we just talked about 18 years plus of your life in glass, and man, so many things you said were so right on and positive, and just I can't thank you enough. I'll maybe pulling some quotes out of this for some future Instagram posts. Because they were just like,
No worries.
it was like, dude, that's fucking so on point. And I'm just in my head thinking this shit while I'm just like listening to you. So I definitely appreciate you coming out and doing this. And look forward to the Vagabong, which I think is a hilarious, awesome pun name. It's freaking like the whole American Pipe Dream thing. It's just so good, dude. So congrats on that.
Yeah,
and all your
actually,
success.
the whole all the namings of those. I gotta give credit to my friend Chelsea. She was helping me out and working for me for the past year, and when she saw me getting ready for my first show and just the way my work ethic and the way I worked, she came up with the name for the production company, Borrowed Time. So it's kind of like you're running on borrowed time. Every minute that you stand behind your torch, that you're not out living life and doing things, you're on borrowed time. You're on the time that the borosilicate wants. You know.
That's so funny. It's so true.
It's its own thing. So we had that going. We've been playing with that name for a side Instagram page for a little while, for all my clothing, and then when coming up with the film, we started talking about like the traveling glassblower, and then it just kind of popped up. Like we were like just bouncing names around, and she said that one. And I was like, yeah. And then I looked it up on Urban Dictionary, and it was a wandering bong without a home. And I was like, that's perfect.
It's hilarious.
So I actually need to go and update the Urban Dictionary to where it's a vagabong is a wandering glassblower, like a glassblower who peddles his wares, as in like, did you see that vagabond at the Saturday market?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just kind of fun, just play on words.
That's hilarious.
And then American Pipe Dream, it's like a no-brainer because that's what we do every day. Like the American dream that our parents were taught in school and what we were taught in school. You know, you support yourself, you pay your taxes, you have a family, you do these things, and that's the American dream. And we're doing all of that, but with a pipe.
Mm-hmm.
And so we walk a fine line of, you know, what is legal, what isn't legal for a long time, and it's a lot different than it used to be.
Yeah. You're telling me, especially now here in Florida, we got medical finally. Thank God. It starts in January.
Oh my God, I can't wait.
Yeah,
I'll make going to visit so much nicer.
Yeah, fucking awesome, brother. Well, again, man, we're crunched for time, so I'm gonna pass on the quick fire round for you. So
okay.
But I'm gonna have like 3% of my battery on my phone. It sucks.
No worries. Well,
but
thank you so much for having me on today. If anyone wants to find me on Instagram, it's J.D.Maplesden. I also have a website which is J.D.Maplesden's Glass or JDMaplesdensGlass.com, and you can find a link to the trailer for Vagabong, the American Pipe Dream there. Hopefully by this spring we'll have the announcements for the release party on there as well. when we do the release of the film, I'm doing a 200-person private showing so it's going to be a big fun event.
Yeah, it's all
and
amazing.
then hopefully I'm going to be able to take it to a couple places around the country to show off to people.
Heck yeah. That's awesome, brother. And I'll have all this information as well on your page on my website. Just go to wiseguymedia.com/137, and we'll have a big promo page on there for you and for the show, and I'll keep up to dates with you too on when things are coming out, and I'll make sure I keep the site up to date for you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me on today, and you have a wonderful day.
You too, brother. Take care of yourself.
All right. Take care.
Yeah, man. Peace.
This episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show is brought to you by The Flow magazine. Since its inception, the focus of The Flow has been to provide a bond among members of the lampworking community. In every issue, you can enjoy great content with the hottest artists and cutting-edge techniques using the latest industry products. These features, along with the continuation of our Women in Glass edition, Glasscraft Emerging Artist Awards, inspiring gallery showcases, dynamic general interest articles, as well as health and safety information, make The Flow the leading international lampworking journal. For more information or to subscribe to The Flow, go to theflowmagazine.com. That's theflowmagazine.com.